Hi everyone, it's Nick Soper with Creative College Prep, and I am here with Melissa Falk, the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid at Muhlenberg College. Hi Melissa,
Hi, Nick.
how are
Hi,
you?
everybody.
Yeah, you're on with
Doing
everyone.
well.
This is another segment of Spotlight on Admissions, and we are doing this live on Google Hangouts, so bear with us if we have any difficulty with the connections, but we're going to dive right in with our first question. Melissa, will you tell us a little bit about Muhlenberg and what you find most exciting about what's going on there these days?
So Muhlenberg we are considered a small liberal arts college. We're nestled in a suburb of Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is the third largest metropolitan area in Pennsylvania. We are 90 miles from New York City, regular bus service every day from Allentown to New York City about 12 times a day. Takes an hour and a half without traffic. And believe it or not, that bus somehow makes it to New York without traffic every time. And just 60 miles from Philadelphia, again, regular bus service to two major cities, even though Allentown itself is a city of about 119,000 people. So not insignificantly sized, but wonderfully positioned between these two great places. I think one of the really exciting things that's very distinctive about the Muhlenberg experience is that we really blend and infuse the arts in terms of a lot of pre-professional programming. One of the things that if you read about Muhlenberg, you're going to find out about is we've got this very long history of placement into health professions graduate programs. Lots of doctors, dentists, veterinarians have gone on from Muhlenberg. But interestingly, in our 168 plus year history, that has been certainly a stronghold. But in the last 3 decades, particularly, the arts have really emerged in a very significant way, like exploded, which is really exciting. And it's exciting because we have students that come to Muhlenberg each and every year that have the opportunity to really integrate the arts with other pre-professional areas. And some of our double major combinations, some of our interdisciplinary majors that have emerged recently in the last couple of decades have happened because Muhlenberg students have a real passion, perhaps, for the performing arts in terms of theater or dance or music, and then find ways then to integrate it with other pre-professional programs here at the college that have been of great strength for many years. So for example, we very commonly have neuroscience theater double majors. We have students who are double majoring in theater and business. That I think happened because, those students went home and got really excited about performing arts and were passionate. But of course, the parents turned around and said, hey, you got to be a little bit more realistic about how you're going to support yourself. And so interestingly, under our business major at Muhlenberg, specifically, we have an arts administration concentration that was born out of the initiatives of those students who were seeing the interconnections. We have a dance science concentration in our dance major. So you've got students who are interested in biology and dance, and we even have a kinesiology class. It's integrally part of the dance major specifically. So I think we blend sort of the pre-professional and the arts in a high level way too. It's not just that you can come to Muhlenberg and have an okay theater program, or you come to Muhlenberg and have an okay science program, but you have nationally recognized programs in both areas specifically. And to be surrounded by faculty and students particularly who really want to have that integration of the arts and the pre-professional, I think is something that's very unique. And we're probably one of only a handful of colleges in the nation specifically that have that. The other unique thing, I think, is that we're incredibly disarmingly friendly as a community. So add on top of that, in terms of environment, we've got a really beautiful setting, but we also have we have really wonderful, good people here who everyday nicety still exists here at the college. People greet one another on the walkway. People ask people how they are, and they actually pause for their response because they're actually interested. It's not the perfunctory, hey, how you doing? Keep walking. There's a real sense of connection that people feel to one another as well. I could go on for a while, but those are my brief comments about what I think is really exciting at this
I think
point.
those are great. I know it well from all of the creative kids that come through my practice in particular. So what kinds of things do you find yourself looking out for in applications that really helps to set certain students apart as particularly good for Muhlenberg?
Well, one of the things that I really appreciate is just the energy that a student presents in terms of their willingness to engage in their college experience. And that's both intellectually and academically, but also in terms of the community at large, or even on a global scale in terms of the kind of impact that they want to have as a member of our community specifically. And so I think one of the things, particularly in the application review, we're looking for that kind of energy. And there's evidence of that typically, in a student's resume. There's evidence of that in terms of the teacher recommendations. Particularly in person, though, is the most compelling way in which a student can really give me, as the admissions counselor, a sense of whether or not there's going to be a willingness to engage in the kind of experience here. And so one of the things that we really encourage very particularly is the chance for us to meet that student in person, whether via Skype, whether on campus during a visit, whether it's when I'm visiting high schools in the fall. The opportunity to really meet somebody in person and get a sense of that really provides an additional layer to that application process. If students are not able to do any of that in terms of their application to Muhlenberg, the essay is a great place to certainly communicate some of that as well, and for us to hear your story in your own words. And so I think there are lots of ways to get at that question of their willingness and interest in engaging in their college experience, but I think the personal interface really allows for that to become much more vivid and much more vibrant for us as admissions counselors.
That's great. And I know that's a growing in terms of its importance in a lot of admissions processes. But I think a lot of times people don't step out and just say, "Hey, come on, interact with us. We want to hear about it."
Yeah. Well, and admissions counselors like students. And so the chance to interact with students in person, we live for that. We're real people. We love that interaction. And believe me, those of us who've been in admissions as long as I have, it's not because we get to live in our cars for 8 months of the travel season in the fall. It's because we get to meet students, each and every day.
Yeah. So what is it, along those lines, what is your favorite story from your time working in admissions? Or one of your favorite stories? I'm sure you have plenty.
Well, it's interesting because I just finished my 23rd admissions cycle at Muhlenberg. And so every year there's a story. But actually my story today is the one from actually 2 days ago. Our first year students are starting to move in. Some of them are involved in pre-orientation programs. Some of them involved in fall sports. All of our freshmen will be moved in by this Friday. And so this Saturday, I had a student driving with her mom. It's just the two of them from Chicago to move her in. And they were delayed about 2 or 3 hours. So they arrived at Muhlenberg at about 11:30 at night on Saturday night. And, I planned to meet them because I didn't want them to walk into sort of a dark residence hall without somebody greeting them. So as I got there, I realized they had a lot of things to carry up 3 flights of steps. So I sort of thought, okay, who's in my phone right now that might be here? So the first year student who actually plays currently is hoping to play, I should say, on the football team. He's in preseason. He lived a floor above this young woman. And I texted him in the hopes that maybe he was around, Friday night, it's college, you never know. And so I just said, I texted him, I said, is there any way you're around? I just need help over a few flights of steps. He said, no problem, Melissa, I'll come right down. And so 2 minutes later, I think the entire freshman line, offensive line of the football team was waiting by residential services, and they carried all of this young woman's, their classmate, up to the room. And it was just one of those really wonderful moments where I shouldn't have been surprised at all. They were glad to help. I asked for one person to help, and I ended up with a dozen because that's the kind of people that join a place like Muhlenberg. And so maybe not admissions related specifically, but I mean, that was just one of those wonderful things this weekend where, I'm reminded every day about sort of how special this place is, but how wonderful the work is to be able to work with students along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such an affirmation of what it's about. Last question.
And I was really glad not to carry that.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Call in the muscle. You got to know when to delegate.
Yeah, that's right.
Last question for you is what advice, in your 23 cycles, what advice, encouragement, or words of caution do you have for families as they are getting ready to get into this application process?
Well, particularly because it's a family experience, but I think one of the things, data is important, I think, when it really informs decision-making in a meaningful way. And so the one data point that I always share with families is when they think about sort of the landscape of colleges and universities just in the United States, there are probably anywhere from 2,600 to 2,800 four-year colleges and universities. Right. And I believe by good estimation, there's probably about 300, maybe 350 of those four-year colleges and universities that actually admit less than 50% of their applicant pools. So statistically speaking, students have a very good chance at being admitted to college, obviously being thoughtful about where they're applying. But just I think there's a lot of anxiety that families and students approach this process with. But if they actually realize how many amazing options there are out there, and those options meaning, colleges and universities out there that are interested in you as a student, just sort of approach the process with that mindset of there's a place for me. In terms of being thoughtful, in terms of being deliberative about a search. But there's certainly, statistically speaking, students have a really good shot of being admitted. I think the other piece is, always follow your gut. For a lot of high school students, they think, what do I know? I'm only 16 or 17 years of age. But the truth is, a whole lot, there's a lot more wisdom to you in terms of your experience thus far, to certainly have confidence in your decisions, to know who you are right now, but also really know a place that makes sense for you in terms of a place that you feel comfortable, but a place that you feel comfortable in a way that's going to help you thrive and soar ultimately in terms of that 4-year experience. And I guess the last piece is just even for families to think about the fact that the college search is a really, really special time. And I know that people see it as a stressful time, but I think it's a really special time for the family. So whether it's you have 4 parents involved, or you have 2 parents involved, or you have 1 parent involved, that it's a really special time for you and whomever that person is who's sort of your college coach in your family, whether it's your mom or dad or your grandparent or whomever's involved, but to remember that this is time that actually you don't get back later on. Once you get to college, life gets really busy. And so the time that you get to spend talking about the possibilities of college, the time that you get to spend driving in a car, visiting a college, the time that you get to spend on a plane or a train, or maybe arguing about what hasn't gotten done or what wasn't done the way they would have liked you to have done it. Those kinds of things are sort of minor in the scheme of things, but that there's just this wonderful time that they're going to remember that they had with you in terms of helping you figure out, the next step, and really them being very excited for all the possibilities of that next step at the same time. And so to really value the time as much as it feels stressful, because they're not going to be able to get it back later on when things get a lot busier and people move off to their lives in college and everything else. So.
Enjoy the process. Novel advice. Who knew
definitely.
You could actually do that?
Yeah. Who knew this was supposed to be enjoyable, right? Exactly.
Man,
yeah.
Such a breath of fresh air. Great. Well, we're going to wrap things up for today. I'm so glad we had a chance to hear from you and learn about Muhlenberg. And for the families who are watching, who are interested and want to learn more, where would you advise them to go?
Well, to go to our website, www.muhlenberg.edu. They're welcome to email me directly. I am the representative on the admissions staff at Muhlenberg who actually takes care of California students. And I take that role very seriously. And so folks are welcome to email me as well. I visit extensively throughout the fall, all through the entire state of California. I go out in the winter with my theater director to do on-site auditions. I will Skype at ridiculous hours that are Pacific Coast time. If that's the only way that we get to meet each other, I'm happy to certainly extend myself. So.
Wonderful. Perfect. Well, we have those up on the screen for everybody now, and we're going to wrap it up. So please be sure to like, share, subscribe, leave comments, and come back again soon for more on how to get creative on your path to college. Thanks so much, Melissa. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.